When we talk about culture, we're not talking about posters on the wall or values printed in the handbook. We're talking about how things really work. The unwritten rules, the quiet signals, the subtle behaviors that shape what's normal, especially when no one's watching. Culture isn't just something we observe. It's something we learn from over time. And it's powerful because it doesn't just reflect behavior. It reinforces it. People watch what gets rewarded. They notice what gets overlooked. And in the process, they figure out what's safe, what's smart, and what's expected. That's how culture sustains itself. Not through declarations or value statements, but through repetition, through signals, through the small everyday choices people make, often without realizing it. Even when nothing's said out loud, the message still comes through. In any organization, culture acts as a self-reinforcing and self-replicating collective frame of reference. When we attempt to transform that organization, the most effective place to intervene is at the cultural level, specifically through leadership. However, asking senior leaders to change their own behaviors often triggers strong resistance. That's because the people at the top have typically benefited the most from the current system. It has rewarded them, promoted them, and reinforced the very habits that now need to shift. So when they're under pressure, they tend to fall back on what worked for them in the past. In contrast, employees at lower levels may not have received the same rewards, only the promise of future payoffs for following the rules. Changing those rules can lead to frustration and confusion, especially when the new approach challenges long-standing expectations. What often surprises people is that the strongest resistance typically doesn't come from the bottom of the organization. It comes from mid-management and above. And that creates a real paradox, because the very people we rely on to sponsor and lead the transformation are sometimes the most invested in keeping things the same. That's why so many transformation efforts stall. They focus energy on engaging frontline employees without addressing the deeper leadership and management behaviors that actually shape the culture. It's important to recognize that every organization is perfectly designed to produce the results it's getting right now. And if we want different results, we have to start by changing the systems, mindsets, and leadership behaviors that are sustaining the current ones. Let's take a moment to really understand how our current organization functions. I am going to repeat again. Your organization is perfectly designed for the results you're getting, and that includes your reinforcement system. Think of your organization like an iceberg. Iceberg! Straight ahead. Sorry, couldn't resist. Above the surface, clearly visible, is the formal organization. These are your policies and procedures, job descriptions, compensation structures, organization charts, and formal performance reviews. But here's the key. These formal elements rarely reflect what truly happens at work on a daily basis. Beneath the surface lies the informal organization, and this is where real influence lives. It includes your political dynamics, cultural norms, unwritten rules, daily relationships, and the presence of informal leaders. These informal systems aren't documented, but they deeply affect how things get done. So when we talk about driving transformation, it's not enough to adjust the formal structures alone. True change requires aligning both formal and informal systems, especially because informal reinforcement is faster, more personal, and often more impactful. And the tighter your formal system is, the more crucial those individual manager-employee relationships become in reinforcing the right behaviors informally. In short, the real power to transform culture often lies below the surface. For transformational change, including those not aligned with your culture, your sponsors must change their behavior. And not just once, but in 3 consistent ways. First, sponsors need to express the change. That's what people hear, through emails, speeches, vision statements, and other formal communication. They must privately and publicly express their commitment to the change. Second, they need to model the change. That's what people see, through how leaders make decisions, set priorities, and use resources. They need to make decisions aligned to the change, make the change a priority, and assign resources to it. And third, most importantly, they need to reinforce the change. That means rewarding, recognizing, and promoting the behaviors that support the new direction. Now, here's the part most people miss. Expressing the change has a 1x impact. Modeling it doubles the impact, 2x. But reinforcement, that delivers 3 times the impact. What gets reinforced speaks louder than anything you say. That's why, even with perfect messaging, if what's rewarded doesn't match, people follow the reward. When expression, modeling, and reinforcement are aligned, transformation gains momentum. But when they're out of sync, trust breaks down. And trust isn't just a soft concept. Low trust slows everything down. It increases resistance, drives up costs, and delays results. If you're serious about transformation, alignment across all 3 signals isn't optional. It's the foundation. For transformation to feel real, sponsors must model change in a way that's visibly and personally painful. If leaders talk about change, but nothing about their own behavior shifts, people tune it out. One executive team gave up their corporate helicopters, but switched to limousines. To employees, it didn't feel like they gave anything up. It looked superficial, and it didn't build trust. Now compare that to a CEO who took $1 in salary for a year to show commitment to change. Symbolic? Yes. But it was personal. It was visible. And it sent a clear signal. The change starts at the top. This is the second fundamental of transformation. People believe change is real when they see leaders take on real cost. Without that visible commitment, trust fades, and transformation loses momentum. Here's the paradox of transformation. Sponsors, the very leaders we rely on to drive change, often have the most resistance. Why? Because they have the highest vested interest in the current system, staying the same. Their established ways of working, their rewards, and their status are tied to the status quo. Recognizing this resistance is critical. We must plan for it, address it directly, and help sponsors understand their pivotal role in modeling and reinforcing the new behaviors. Without their active, consistent support, transformation simply won't happen. If you don't change the reinforcement, you don't get transformational change. Your current reinforcement systems, both formal and informal, are perfectly designed to produce the behaviors you're already getting. To drive transformation, you have to gut out these existing reinforcements and align them with the new behaviors you seek to see. That means both tangible and intangible reinforcers, like recognition, rewards, and informal feedback, must be adapted to support the transformation. Change the reinforcement, and you unlock the potential for real transformation. Motivating people to embrace change is one of the greatest challenges in transformational change. It's always harder to adopt new, untested behaviors, those behaviors we seek to see, than it is to cling to the status quo. Fear of the unknown, comfort with existing habits, and uncertainty about outcomes all fuel resistance to change. That's why leaders must create an environment of psychological safety, build trust, and align reinforcements to support these new behaviors. Transformation only happens when people feel confident enough to let go of the familiar and leap into the unknown. Let's explore the tactics that drive real change. First, tangible reinforcements like salary increases, bonuses, and perks motivate people at a direct, immediate level. They're straightforward, but they're just one piece of the puzzle. Next, consider tasks and responsibilities. Assigning new duties, providing input into goals, or offering control over work helps align individual contributions with organizational change. Don't forget the personal touch. Benefits, breaks, and time off can ease the stress of transformation. And on a deeper level, intrinsic motivators like challenging work, team belonging, and appreciation drive engagement from within. The most powerful reinforcements combine these elements, formal and informal, tangible and intangible, aligned to the transformation's goals. Not everyone is motivated by the same things. It is up to the reinforcing sponsor, their manager, to work with their direct reports to find out what does and doesn't motivate them. Check out the Targeted Reinforcement Index to see one way to find out what motivates people. Remember, what gets reinforced gets done. Strategic reinforcement ensures your organization not only changes, but thrives. In the context of transformation, it's important to recognize the distinct roles that leaders and managers play in driving success. First, let's look at the business of leaders. Leaders are responsible for defining the vision and strategy of the transformation. They determine what the end goal looks like, where the organization needs to go, and how to align resources and efforts toward that vision. This involves creating the strategic plan, addressing the big picture, and ensuring there is clarity in what the transformation aims to achieve. Leaders set the tone, inspire change, and create the roadmap. Now, when we talk about the business of managers, it's a whole different ballgame. While leaders design the strategy, it's the managers who execute it. Managers are responsible for making the transformation happen on a daily basis. They take the strategic vision crafted by leaders and translate it into actionable steps that are carried out across the organization. This includes guiding teams, managing processes, ensuring that goals are met, and adjusting as necessary. Managers are on the ground, overseeing the change as it happens and ensuring it sticks. It's their responsibility to drive the organization through the operational challenges of transformation, creating momentum through daily actions that support the broader goals set by leaders. Both roles are critical. Leaders without managers won't see their strategies come to life, and managers without clear leadership can lose direction. Transformation requires both: strong leadership to chart the course and strong management to implement that vision effectively, step by step. Leaders inspire and managers deliver. Let's close with some key reminders for change agents and sponsors involved in transformational change. First, radical change requires radical leadership. You can't expect major results by making only minor adjustments in sponsor behavior. Sponsors must be all in, visible, vocal, and fully engaged. Second, from day one, sponsors must deliver psychological cues that signal this change is different from anything the organization has done before. These cues might come through body language, decision-making, or the messages they consistently reinforce. Third, anticipate leadership turnover. Change will challenge people. Some will step up, others may step aside. So it's not a question of if leadership changes will happen, it's a matter of when. And finally, the more frequently sponsors apply positive or negative reinforcement to what they observe in their teams, the faster behavior will shift. Reinforcement is the driver that turns good intentions into lasting cultural habits.